Hello, English learners. Welcome back to English for Every Day, your daily space to learn real English through real stories. I'm Anika, and today I'm sharing a deeply emotional and inspiring true story. It's a story of struggle, depression, failure, courage, and an unbelievable transformation. And as we go through this journey together, you'll also improve your English listening and speaking skills, naturally and powerfully. So, grab your tea or coffee, sit back, and listen closely. Let's begin. I had nothing, no money, no home. Hassan. No hope. And even worse, I was depression. Not just in depression, I was it. My body moved, but my soul was silent. I didn't see light. I didn't feel life. You see, every day I woke up with one thought: why am I still here? But today I stand in front of you as a doctor, not because I'm special, but because something changed. And in this story, I will tell you what that change was. This is not just my story. This is your English lesson. Because today you will hear real emotions, simple words, and powerful truth, all in clear English. So as you listen, repeat what you hear. Pause and speak out loud. Use this video to feel better and speak better. Are you ready? Here's how the story begins. When I was a child, I thought life was supposed to be kind. But it wasn't. My family was poor, my clothes were old, my shoes had holes, and my heart, it was full of fear. I used to sit alone on the stairs of my home, listening to my parents fight. I didn't understand their words, but I felt every shout in my bones. School was no better. Other kids laughed at me because I was quiet, dirty, different. I started believing a terrible lie. Maybe I'm not meant to be happy. Sometimes I cried at night into my pillow, so no one would hear me. I didn't want to be weak, but I already felt broken. English was the only subject I liked. Even when I couldn't speak well, I loved hearing the words. They sounded like hope. That's why I want this story to be more than words. I want it to be your turning point too. Can you relate to that feeling? Have you ever felt like the world is moving, but you are stuck? This story is about that feeling and how I broke free. And by the end, you'll not only know how I did it, you'll feel ready to rise from your pain too. And your English, it'll be stronger than ever. My childhood was not filled with toys or laughter. It was filled with silence and fear. I remember waking up early, not because I was excited, but because I was hungry. Most mornings I drank water just to fill my stomach. Sometimes we had a little rice. Sometimes we had nothing. Our house was falling apart. The walls were cracked, the roof leaked, but the real damage was inside me. I didn't feel like a person. I felt like a shadow, invisible, unwanted, forgotten. Other kids had birthday parties. I didn't even know my birth date until I was 9. No cake, no candles, just another day of trying to survive. My father worked hard, too hard, but he was always angry, always tired. He wanted to be a good man, but life had broken him too. Sometimes he hit the table, sometimes he hit me. And every time I told myself, stay strong. One day, this will end. But it didn't end. I carried that pain to school. At school, I was the quiet one. I sat in the back, afraid to raise my hand. Not because I didn't know the answer, but because I didn't want people to look at me. I was ashamed of how I looked. Ashamed of my dirty clothes. Ashamed of my broken shoes. But the worst shame was when I started believing I deserved it. Every time someone laughed at me, I laughed too, just to fit in. But inside, I was dying. Some nights I wished I wouldn't wake up. Not because I wanted to die, but because I didn't know how to live. That's what depression does. It takes your voice, your energy, your dreams, and replaces them with silence. Have you ever felt like screaming, but no sound comes out? That was my life, every single day. And still, I went to school. Still, I sat in the back. Still, I listened, especially to English class. There was something about English that made me feel different. Like I could be somewhere else. Like I had a future. But I didn't believe in myself. Not yet. So I waited, and hurt, and hoped, because deep inside me, even in the darkness, there was a small voice, a tiny light, whispering, "Don't give up, not yet." One morning, something inside me snapped. I was 15, sitting in class. It was English period again. The teacher was reading a story, but my mind wasn't in the room. It was far away, thinking about the fights at home, the empty kitchen, the broken shoes I was wearing. I wasn't listening, I was drowning. And then it happened. The teacher looked straight at me and said, "You read the next paragraph." My hands shook, my heart was racing. I wanted to disappear. Everyone turned to look at me. I opened my mouth, nothing came out. The class laughed, loud, cruel. I could hear someone whisper, "He can't even speak English." I went home and cried that day, not because they laughed, but because they were right. I didn't know English, but I wanted to. That night, something changed. I stood in front of the mirror and looked into my own eyes. And for the first time in years, I said something out loud. I will change my life. It wasn't loud, it wasn't brave, but it was real. I found an old English grammar book in my brother's drawer. It had dust, coffee stains, and missing pages. I opened it anyway. The first sentence was, "This is a pen." I smiled. It was simple, but it was a beginning. Every night after that, I read one page. I wrote the sentences again and again in an old notebook. I repeated every word out loud, even if I didn't know the meaning. I am a boy. You are a girl. We are students. I practiced like my life depended on it, because it did. The more I studied, the more my mind changed. I started thinking in English. I started dreaming in English. But it wasn't just the language that was changing. It was me. I wasn't just a poor boy anymore. I was a student. I was learning. I was fighting. My classmates still laughed. My father still shouted. The house was still cold and broken. But something was different. I had a reason to wake up. I had no money for tutors or internet. So I used the library. I listened to English songs on an old radio. I copied the lyrics by hand and tried to understand them word by word. And every day I told myself, they laughed at me yesterday, but tomorrow they will clap. I didn't know when, I didn't know how, but I had made a decision. I was going to become someone I could be proud of. And that day in class, when they laughed, that was the turning point, because sometimes pain is the push we need. Every day after that turning point, I followed a routine, not because someone told me to, because I had to. I would wake up early before school and read one English paragraph out loud. Not fast, not perfect, just clear, just honest. I am learning English. I will not give up. These weren't just grammar exercises. They were promises to myself. My friends still didn't understand. Why are you trying so hard? Just accept your life. But I couldn't, because when you've tasted hopelessness, even the tiniest spark feels like fire. and I was burning inside with a dream. I didn't have a desk, so I studied on the floor. I didn't have a computer, so I borrowed old textbooks and wrote every answer by hand. At night, while the world outside was quiet, I would whisper words to myself in English. Today is a good day. I can do it. I will be a doctor. It sounded crazy at the time, but I didn't care. Sometimes you have to sound crazy to change your life. But it wasn't easy. There were days I wanted to quit. Days I felt stupid. Days I cried over a simple grammar rule I couldn't remember. But every time I fell, I asked myself one question. Do you want to go back? Back to feeling worthless, back to silence, back to nothing? The answer was always no. So I pushed forward. One day, my English teacher noticed me. She said, "You're improving." That was the first compliment I had heard in years. It felt like someone threw me a rope while I was drowning. I held on to that sentence for weeks. Eventually, I began helping other students with English. Me, the quiet boy in the back, was now standing at the front, explaining past tense. That was my first taste of confidence, and it was addicting. Around this time, something even bigger happened. I found a video online. A doctor giving a speech in perfect English. He said, "Being poor is not your fault. Staying poor is." That hit me like lightning. I watched that video 10 times in a row. It made me cry, but it also made me move. I decided I wasn't just going to speak English. I was going to use it to change my future. So I set a new goal, medical school. Everyone laughed. A girl with no money, no connections, and no perfect grades. But I didn't care. I had already survived the worst, and now I was building the best. I studied harder than ever before. I read science books with a dictionary in one hand and a pencil in the other. I watched biology videos in English, paused them every 5 seconds, repeated every sentence. Was it hard? Yes. Was it painful? Absolutely. But it was also beautiful, because every small step I took was one step further from who I used to be. One step closer to the person I dreamed of becoming. My marks improved, my teachers started to notice, and slowly I started to believe. Maybe, just maybe, I could really do it. I remember the day I got my exam results. I walked to the board with shaking hands. My heart was pounding like a drum in my chest. People around me were cheering or crying, but I couldn't hear them. My eyes scanned the paper, line by line, and then I saw my name. Next to it, "Unsanstituted," the words, "eligible for medical school admission." I didn't believe it. I read it again. Then again, tears filled my eyes. Not because I was happy, because I was free. Free from all the lies I used to believe. Free from the shame. Free from the thought that I would never be anything. But the journey wasn't over. Medical school was harder than anything I had ever faced. The language, the pressure, the long nights without sleep. There were moments I thought about quitting. There were nights I studied through tears, afraid I would fail. But I didn't, because I remembered that boy, hungry, broken, afraid, whispering grammar exercises by candlelight. I couldn't quit on him. I wouldn't, so I kept going, step by step, exam by exam, day by day. I made mistakes. I failed some tests, but I kept showing up. And slowly, my dream became my reality. 4 years later, I wore a white coat for the first time. It felt heavy, not because of its weight, but because of what it represented. It carried the story of a boy who had nothing. Who was depression? who didn't speak English, who was laughed at, but who chose to rise anyway. The day I graduated, I stood in front of my classmates as a speaker. Yes, me, the same boy who once couldn't read a paragraph out loud. I gave my speech in English, clear, confident, full of heart. And when I looked up, I didn't see laughter. I saw something else. I saw pride. I saw hope. I saw tears. Because everyone in that room knew this wasn't just a degree. It was a victory. And now, every time I speak English, I remember this language didn't just help me communicate. It helped me transform. You've just heard my story. From a girl who had nothing to a doctor who speaks English and helps others every single day. But here's the truth. This story is not just mine. It can be yours too. I didn't learn English because I was smart. I learned it because I refused to quit. And if you're still here, listening, understanding, feeling these words, that means you're already learning too. So keep going. Repeat this video. Speak the sentences out loud. Use my story as your practice and your power. If a poor, broken, silent boy can become a doctor, then you can become anything. Thank you for watching. If this helped you improve your English or inspired your heart, do one thing: like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs hope. Your next step starts now, and I believe in you.